She's coming. She's coming.
तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। नमो तस्सा भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्सा। बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि, धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि, संघं शरणं गच्छामि। वशिष्ठो वहिष्ठेमस्ति उष्टास्ति उष्टाहमाय यदशाय वहिष्ठाय hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. 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 La ilaha illallah, Allah, Allah. La ilaha illallah, Allah. प्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्न सर्वप्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्न सर्वप्रचोदयात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। जय देवा जय देवा, जय जय गणपति देवा। जय देवा जय जय गणपति देवा। ओम जय जय गणपति देवा। जय जय गणपति देवा। विद्यादायक बुद्धि प्रदायक रिद्धि सिद्धि कर देवा। विद्यादायक बुद्धि प्रदायक विद्यादायक बुद्धि प्रदायक रिद्धि सिद्धि कर देवा। विद्यादायक बुद्धि प्रदायक रिद्धि सिद्धि कर देवा। जय देवा जय देवा, जय जय गणपति देवा। जय देवा जय देवा, जय जय गणपति देवा। गिरिजानंदन बाल गजानन, गिरिजानंदन बाल गजानन, गिरिजानंदन बाल गजानन, गिरिजानंदन बाल गजानन। जय लंबोदर मूषिक वाहन, जय लंबोदर मूषिक वाहन, जय लंबोदर मूषिक वाहन, जय लंबोदर मूषिक वाहन। विघ्न विनाशक देवा, विघ्न विनाशक देवा, हे विघ्न विनाशक देवा, विघ्न विनाशक देवा। जय देवा जय देवा, जय जय गणपति देवा। जय देवा जय देवा, जय जय गणपति देवा। ओम जय जय गणपति देवा। जय जय गणपति देवा। विद्यादायक बुद्धि प्रदायक रिद्धि सिद्धि कर देवा। विद्यादायक बुद्धि प्रदायक रिद्धि सिद्धि कर देवा। गिरिजानंदन बाल गजानन, गिरिजानंदन बाल गजानन। जय लंबोदर मूषिक वाहन, जय लंबोदर मूषिक वाहन। विघ्न विनाशक देवा, विघ्न विनाशक देवा, हे विघ्न विनाशक देवा, हे विघ्न विनाशक देवा। जय देवा जय देवा, जय जय गणपति देवा। मुरली कृष्ण मुकुंद कृष्ण मोहन कृष्ण कृष्ण कृष्ण। 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 गोपी कृष्ण गोपाल कृष्ण गोवर्धन Krishna, Krishna. We are blessed, we are blessed, we are blessed. Sai Baba is watching over us. We are blessed, we are blessed, we are blessed. Sai Baba is watching over us. We are blessed, we are blessed, we are blessed. Sai Baba is watching over us. We are blessed, we are blessed, we are blessed. Sai Baba is watching over us. We are here to sing your sweet name. 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 Let the light of your glory shine on us. Let the light of your glory shine on us. Let the light of your glory shine on us. Let the light of your glory shine on us. Bless us all with your presence, Gurudev. Bless us all with your presence, Gurudev. We are blessed, we are blessed, we are blessed. We are blessed, we are blessed, we are blessed. No more tears, no more sorrow, no more death. No शिवशङ्कर शम्भो शिवशङ्कर नमामि शङ्कर शिवशङ्कर शम्भो हे शिवशङ्कर नमामि शङ्कर शिवशङ्कर शम्भो शिवशङ्कर नमामि शङ्कर शिवशङ्कर शम्भो हे गिरिजापति भवानि शङ्कर गिरिजापति भवानि शङ्कर हे गिरिजापति भवानि शङ्कर गिरिजापति भवानि शङ्कर शिवशङ्कर शम्भो शिवशङ्कर शम्भो शिवशङ्कर शम्भो शिवशङ्कर शम्भो शिवशङ्कर शम्भो शिवशङ्कर शम्भो साई शिवशङ्कर शम्भो शिवशङ्कर हे शिवशङ्कर नमामि शङ्कर शिवशङ्कर शम्भो हे गिरिजापति भवानि शङ्कर गिरिजापति भवानि शङ्कर शिवशङ्कर शम्भो शिवशङ्कर शम्भो शिवशङ्कर शम्भो शिवशङ्कर शम्भो शिवशङ्कर शम्भो साई शिवशङ्कर शम्भो हे शिवशङ्कर नमामि शङ्कर शिवशङ्कर शम्भो Eres mi madre y padre, eres mi Dios, Sai Baba. Eres mi madre y padre, eres mi Dios, Sai Baba. Eres mi madre y padre, eres mi Dios, Sai Baba. Eres mi madre y padre, eres mi Dios, Sai Baba. बोलो जय 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 सत्य साई की जय, जय जय सत्य साई की जय। ध्यान से बोलो जय बाबा जय, प्रेम से बोलो जय बाबा जय। राम साई राम साई राम साई राम, राम साई राम साई राम साई राम, राम साई राम साई राम साई राम, राम साई राम साई राम साई राम। कौसल्यनन्दन दशरथ राम, कौसल्यनन्दन दशरथ राम, जानकी वल्लभ जय जय राम, जानकी वल्लभ जय जय राम। लक्ष्मण सेवित लावण्य राम, लक्ष्मण सेवित लावण्य राम। रावण मर्दन रणधीर राम, अयोध्यवासी राजा राम, अयोध्यवासी राजा राम। अंजन प्रिय सुता आत्माभिराम, अंजन प्रिय सुता आत्माभिराम, अंजन प्रिय सुता आत्माभिराम। राम साई राम साई राम साई राम, राम साई राम साई राम साई राम, राम साई राम साई। कौसल्यनन्दन दशरथ राम, जानकी वल्लभ जय जय राम, जानकी वल्लभ जय जय राम। लक्ष्मण सेवित लावण्य राम, लक्ष्मण सेवित लावण्य राम। रावण मर्दन रणधीर राम, अयोध्यवासी राजा राम, अयोध्यवासी राजा राम। अंजन प्रिय सुत आत्माभिराम, अंजन प्रिय सुत आत्माभिराम। राम साई राम साई राम साई राम, राम साई राम साई राम साई शांति शांति।
Thank you, Swami, for a conference filled with wisdom and love. We pray for your guidance and presence yet again when we are with our beloved Sai sisters. Sai Ram, everyone. My name is Nandini Kalyana Sundaram. I am from Dallas, Texas. Prior to moving to Dallas, I lived in Boston for 10 years. And this is where I found Swami. And in those 6 years, I was the Boston YA rep, as well as the Region 1 YA rep as well. For the SWC program, I am grateful to have been part of the core planning team. The title talk for today's morning is Two Chairs, and I am honored to introduce Aparna Murli. Aparna is grateful to Bhagwan for many blessings, foremost being her family, parents and grandparents who came to Bhagwan in the early 60s. After completing high school and Bal Vikas in Chennai, she joined the Sathya Institute of Higher Learning, Anantapur campus, graduating with honors in Bachelor of Science. This was the turning point in her life in developing an inner relationship with Bhagwan. Aparna continued her postgraduate studies and has a master's in psychology and second master's in genetic counseling. Professionally, Aparna provides counseling services for women and their families who are at risk for genetic conditions in the Department of OBGYN at UCLA. From the Sai front, Aparna has been an active member in the organization and is grateful to have served at different capacities: center, regional, national, zonal. She currently serves as an SSC teacher and advisor of the Sathya Sai International Leadership Program. For those who know Aparna, when it comes to fun fact, it's common knowledge that she has one big dilemma in life: banana split or banana bread. Let's not go bananas over it. Ladies and more ladies, it is my absolute honor to introduce my friend, my soul sister, Aparna Murli.
त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देवा त्वमेव सर्वं श्री साई देवा त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देवा. My love and gratitude to Sai, who is my mother, my father, my best friend, my teacher, my wisdom, my all. My love and gratitude to the Sai who lives in your heart. Sai Ram, everybody. I didn't want the bhajan session to end. Did you all feel the same way? Yes. Usually, when I'm asked to speak, I discuss with my parents, at least the outline, and they're always nervous. So my mom asked me, so the title says 2 chairs. So you're going to talk about chairs? I said, yes, eventually I will talk about chairs. I'll talk about chairs in such a way that every single time you see a chair, you'll remember something for sure. And I'll tell you what you're going to remember. So then she said, so what are you going to talk about? I said, Amma, luckily they have given me only 25 minutes. So that's why I took my watch out so that I can keep track on time. So I'm going to talk about 4 ammas, 3 didis, 2 aunties, and 1 very special person. She said, 4 ammas? It almost sounds like 12 Days of Christmas song. On the first day of Christmas. I said, yes, 4 ammas. She said, who are the 4 ammas? I said, Ishwar Amma, Sharada Amma, Rukmani Amma, and Dakshayani Amma. She had a big frown on her face. She said, Ishwar Amma, I understand. How could you talk about the other 3 Ammas? They are not on the same level as Ishwar Amma. I said, no, I think I disagree. They are on the same level as Ishwar Amma, at least for me. And that's what Ishwar Amba's son taught me, because the other 3 are my grandmothers and my mother. It's so interesting that we are in a bank. Did you guys know that this is called the first Trenton National Bank, and the first Sai Women's National Conference is happening in a bank? And a bank is a very special place, very special place. You think about a bank, it's not like a marriage hall. It's not like a retreat site. You think like bank is a very important place where precious things are stored and important transactions happen. I mean, nowadays we have Zelle. I know Menaka talked about it. We do a lot of online banking, but bank is generally associated with something that's very valuable, right? It's very valuable. And different types of transactions are taking place in this bank. Somebody is opening an account, somebody is depositing a check, somebody is withdrawing, somebody is getting a loan. A lot of different things are happening, which means, A, you have an account, or you're opening an account. And in my heart, the fact that the first women's conference is happening in a bank, I feel, and I think you'll all agree, you all have an account in this divine bank. And for me, my account was opened by Sharada Amma, Rukmani Amma, and Dakshayani Amma, and Ishwar Amma. I inherit the most valuable spiritual wealth from all the women who came before me. It is because of them that I am here. So I offer my gratitude to all of them for opening an account in my name so that I could stand here and I could thank them. And I'm sure you are all remembering your ammas or your mommies and thanking them as well. The 3 didis or the 3 akkas. I know there are a lot of Sai sisters here in the audience. My Anantapur roommate is also here, and a lot of my seniors and my batchmates and my juniors are here. So a special shout out to all of them. Preeti Auntie mentioned yesterday that the first educational institution that Bhagwan started was for women in 1968, and we celebrated the 50th year last year in Prashantinilayam, and we had a grand celebration. And Swami's philosophy of education is very unique. It's not limited to classroom, it is for life. That's what he says. Education is not for living, it's for life. And what he meant by that was it extended even to the hostel. So that's where the 3 akkas or the 3 didis come into play. Rashmi Didi, Sharada Didi, and Lakshmi Akka. So if you can imagine, this is a residential program, and in each room there would be 7 or 8 girls staying together, and it really taught you how to adjust, how to understand, how to cooperate, how to collaborate, and how to be cohesive. And these 3 sisters kind of set the tone because they were the room seniors. Even though they came from different cities, we did not know them ahead of time. We all spoke different languages, but we were all bound by that love for God. Till today, when I wake up, as soon as I wake up, I make my bed. And that is something that I learned in the hostel, because Rashmi Didi will say, hey, make your bed before you go for Suprabhatam. So Rashmi Didi instilled this sense of duty, that whatever you're supposed to do, you just do it. Even before Nike adapted it, Swami brought it in. You just do it. Sharada Didi will be always smiling, always smiling. So what I learned from her was, when you do your duty, you do it with a smile. And that's very refreshing for all of us, including yourself. And Lakshmi Akka was very, very special. So we have this task that we were seven students in a room, and each day we had something called a room duty, which meant we would sweep and mop the floor. Every room had an altar. We would clean the altar. We would offer flowers, and we would fold the clothes at the end of the day. And in the night, at 9 p.m. after the prayer, we would all have to drink a glass of milk. So this was our room duty. And whenever Lakshmi Akka would do the room duty, it would be different. It would feel very different. It would felt like Prashanti Nilayam was in New Hostel 5. And I would ask her, Lakshmi Akka, what is the secret? How come every time you do the room duty, it is so different? And she would say, Aparna, it's very simple. You do it with love. You put all your heart and your love into whatever you're doing, that when people walk into the room, all they'll feel is that love. They'll just feel love. So Rashmi Didi was do your duty, Sharda Didi was do it with a smile, and Lakshmi Akka taught me to always do it with love. Those are my 3 Akkas. The 2 aunties. So the first auntie, her name is Unna Malai, and she was actually our housemaid. So when I was in middle school and high school in Chennai, she would come and do the house chores. She was a widow, and she lived with her son and daughter-in-law and grandchildren. And she had a little bit of a hearing problem as well, but very sweet person, very dedicated. During holidays and summer vacation, because I would be at home, going around, having way too much fun always. After she was done with work, my mother would feed her lunch and dinner, because when she went back home, her family did not take good care of her. So my mother would always make sure that she had food with us. So anytime I went to the back of the house, I would see that once she was done with work, she would freshen up, and she would pray, she would put vibhuti, and then she would eat her meal. So it was pray, eat, and love for her. That was the sequence. And every time she saw me pass by, she would say, Papa, vah. And she would say it with so much love. And I would think, this is the only meal she's getting. When she goes home, she may or may not get food. But with so much of kindness, she would call out and she'll say, come join me. Have some of my food. She wouldn't even think, well, this is my food. You know, you say juta, you don't want other people to. She never had those thoughts. She saw someone, and the first thought she had was she wants to share it. Okay? This is Unnamalai. The other auntie is actually my hairdresser in Los Angeles. She has a salon very close to my place, and that's where I get all my cultural lessons in Spanish because she's Mexican. And I love going there because there's always a hustle bustle. There's so many people coming in. Some, they come for different things. A lot of them come just to chit chat. And they'll speak in Spanish, and that's how I started picking up a few words in Spanish, and they would have loud music blaring. It's a fantastic scene. It's always happening. So sometimes I would alternate. It's not like I liked my haircut, but I loved the experience. So one day, I had gone there, and she was in the middle of cutting my hair. Somebody walked in, and she started talking to this person. And I was thinking, can you finish quickly? Like, I need to go. I was seated in the chair. But she was like chatting. It happened to be the vegetable vendor. So in LA, you should all move to LA. In LA, they have trucks, and there are folks who bring vegetables in their trucks, and they'll be at the street corner. You can go and buy vegetables from them. It's a fun experience. So Diana, that's her name. You can Google her up. Diana said, you want to buy vegetables? And I was thinking, I went to the grocery store yesterday. Why would I want to buy vegetables again? Sealing on desires. We kind of tend to apply it in the wrong places. And I just you have the cloth, your hair is wet, and I'm thinking, let's get going, lady. And she's chatting, and I could tell they're asking about each other's family. And then she asked me second time, you buy? And I said, no. And then she asked me a third time, you buy? Again, I said, now I started explaining myself. I said, yesterday I went to the grocery store. I don't want to waste anything. Then she's like, okay. And she went back chatting to this guy. She came back for the fourth time and asked me, you buy? Again, I said no. It's very determined. And then that gentleman left, and Diana resumed cutting my hair. And then she said, he has 5 small children. Could have bought a cucumber for $1. Or an avocado for 50 cents. And I thought, I could have. I really could have. We think about sealing on desires, and we think about being determined. We have our own interpretations of spirituality. But here, these 2 individuals, these 2 aunties, Unnamalai and Diana, taught me, you don't share because you have extra. You share because you have something to share, and you can always share. One very special person, very, very special person, and I have a feeling you're already thinking who I'm going to be talking about. Someone who's very kind, very loving, very sweet, very gentle, very hardworking, very generous. That is you. For the past 3 months, I feel so privileged to have worked with an extraordinary group of individuals. To see love in action every single day. And you have enriched my conference experience with your presence and the love and the energy that you bring. So we have had almost a day and a quarter now into this conference, and you're asking yourself, I've come here, I've had a really good time. I think it's 100%. Everybody's going to say, I've had a really good time. Now what? Where do I go from here? What does this experience mean to me? This is where the 2 chairs come in. But the 2 chairs are preceded by one word. And that word has been mentioned several times since yesterday. And that is a word that I will forever associate with this conference. And that word is opportunity. Anna mentioned it yesterday as part, after the cultural programs was over, she mentioned the word opportunity. Many of you have mentioned the word opportunity. We have this opportunity. The opportunity comes to you every single day, not just at a conference. It comes at home, it comes at work, it comes in the Sai Center, it comes everywhere, an opportunity. So when an opportunity comes, and for some reason in your mind you're thinking, can I do this? Think of a chair. You're being given a seat at the table, take it. Take the opportunity. Unless there is some legitimate logistical reason, take the chair. And when you sit in that chair, pull one more chair next to you so that you create an opportunity for one more person. If you are already seated because you have taken the chair, bring 2 chairs, one on each side. So you can bring 2 more next to you so that they can have that opportunity. But the word opportunity, if you examine it, is a very, very sweet word. Think about the last 5 letters. When you get the opportunity, you experience unity. When you experience unity, you experience divinity. God lives in you. Saira.
Every time I hear Aparna, I walk away with something. And whether she wants it or not, sometimes I even make her my therapist. But jokes aside, it was so poignant to hear all the stories of these wonderful women in your life, Aparna. And it has been a blessing and opportunity to know you. And you have been instrumental to this Sai organization. So thank you. So the next program is a panel discussion titled Connecting the Dots. The panel is facilitated by Sumana Murali. A quick introduction to Sumana. Sumana was among the early batch of students who joined the Sri Sathya Sai Primary School in Prashanthi Nilayam when it was inaugurated in 1980. Sumana completed her bachelor's degree in English in 1991 from Sathya Sai University's Anantapur campus. She later acquired her master's and MPhil in English from Chennai. Following her marriage, Sumana moved to New Jersey, where she earned an M.Ed in early childhood and elementary education. She worked as a pre-kindergarten teacher in New Jersey and has been closely associated with the Sathya Sai Baba Center of East Brunswick, where she taught SSC for 12 years and served as the center's education coordinator. Sumana comes from a family that is deeply committed to Bhagwan and his teachings. She was named by him and guided through every avenue of her life. Sumana is an excellent baker, and she makes awesome chocolate fudge. Sumana, I'm not going to Dallas. I'm coming to your house after this. So, Sumana, everyone.
Offering my loving salutations at dear Swami's lotus feet. Sairam, everyone. I've been sitting up here for the last 2 days, and I just didn't realize how many of you are back there. And it's beautiful to see both the sides filled with women. The back of my head tells me the men are in the other room, but they're not. It's just us. So I have this opportunity to be part of this panel that includes Geetaram Auntie, Dr. Soumya Panchanathan, and Niyanta Gopal. So this panel is entitled Connecting the Dots. When I was called asking to moderate this panel and I was given this title, I had to do a lot of connecting the dots. But as soon as I knew who the panelists were, the job became really easy. You know, as women, we have so many different roles that we play in our lives. Some of them consciously and some of them unconsciously. We've been placed in different homes. We grew up differently. We have grown up in different cities. But there's something that connects all of us. And the fact is that we are women. We have a lot of hats that we wear. So I want you to pretend that you have a hat next to you. And if you wear that hat, pick it up and place it on your head. I am a mother. I am. That's all? Is the mothers? Okay. I am a sister. I am a daughter. I am an employer. I am an employee. I'm a wife. I'm a teacher. I'm an author. Nice. I'm a doctor. I'm a chauffeur. So many hats. I'm a cook. Yes. I'm a baker. So, with all these hats, and if you have any others, please put them all on. Right. With all these hats, we have so many different roles to play, and we try to do it all in 24 hours. Or we try to do our best, and we have a lot of questions about a lot of these roles that we play. Some of them we have a chance to chat with our friends, and some we try to catch up at the center, but we have questions. So it gives me great pleasure to be part of this panel to get some sort of a discussion going with these awesome ladies here. Now, I do want to say that just like the rest of us, these ladies have grown up in completely different circumstances. They are so filled with insight and wisdom. But as I was talking to them, I realized that's the way they decided to take an approach in their life, and a lot of it with Swami's guidance. So as you listen to this panel discussion, you might take away a lot of things, and you will take away a lot of things. Take it in, absorb, think about it, think about your own life and how you could or apply it in your life or modify it for application in your life. So, our first panelist is from St. Louis and Kansas City. She's extremely creative. She's an awesome cook, an incredible dancer, and somebody who loves to eat chocolate chip pancakes for all the meals. She's an SSC student. She grew up and she was part of the center, extremely active young adult, and she's played a role at the regional level, and she plays a role in the transition team that helps Group 4s become part of the young adults. And she's taken the Sathya Leadership Program. By profession, she's an architect that designs hospital spaces. So please join me in welcoming Niyanta Gopal. Our second panelist is from Canada and America. She loves to hike every weekend, and she bicycles with her dad. She's not that great at texting, but she's learning to. Born and brought up in Canada, Ontario, she came to Swami and served as the center's devotion and SSC coordinator. She's also served as a young adult advisor. She's a practicing pediatrician and an associate program director in the Phoenix Children's Hospital's pediatric residency program, and an associate fellowship director of clinical informatics at the University of Arizona College of Medicine, Phoenix. She is the founding medical director of a student-run interprofessional free clinic for homeless people, and she's the mother of 2 grown children and a mother-in-law. Please join me in welcoming Soumya Panchanathan. So now that I introduced 2, you know who the third one is. Our third panelist is Geeta Ram. And we all know Geeta Auntie as the little girl who played Truth and Ladders with Swami, who grew up right under his nose, has been part of the SSC program right from its inception. And we all know that Swami has just been such an integral part of her life in every which way. She is a teacher. She taught kindergarten for over 17 years. And besides teaching, her best skill, even voted by Swami, is speaking to everybody. She gives talks all over the world about Swami. Join me in welcoming Mrs. Geeta Ram. So we have these three ladies, and think about it for a second. Geeta Auntie was born and brought up in India, and then she's been here for over 30 years, raised her children here. You have Dr. Soumya Panchanathan, who was born and brought up in Canada, and then she moved here. She's raised her children in the Sai fold. Then you have Niyanta Gopal, who's a young adult who grew up in a different generation. So I want you to keep that in the back of your mind, because a lot of choices we make in our lives are made because of where we come from and how we are conditioned to think. And what we decided to do was to think of a woman's life. Think of our lives. We're born, we grow up into young women, then we go to work, we get married, we have children, we become grandmothers, and we have grandchildren, and those children grow up, and it starts all over again. So we thought, to make it a little more cohesive, we would have questions asked in all of these different stages in life. As a young adult, as a working woman, as a mother, as a grandmother, mother-in-law. So what I'll do is I'll cycle through these questions, and we'll have an opportunity to hear them. So let's get started. I'm going to take a seat because I think they're recording, so I wouldn't be standing all the time. So let's start with the young adult question. So all of you have known Swami from a very young age. Could you share with us the role Swami played in your younger years? And what kind of a relationship did you have with him? And I'll start with Niyanta.
So, growing up, Swami in my relationship was routine. It was going to SSE every Sunday, going to bhajans every Friday. Without fail, any weekend there was Akhanda bhajans or Baba's birthday, we would be at the center. It was routine, and it laid a foundation, but there wasn't really, anything extra. It was just kind of going with the flow. It was our life, and we loved it. But that relationship, I think, takes time to develop, that one-on-one relationship. And that happened later in life. I think moving into becoming a young adult and having life situations occur, that you start to develop that one-on-one relationship with him. But the foundation was laid at a young age.
So it's interesting. So I understand that you grew up in Swami's fold, but your relationship with him developed after your inner relationship with him.
Yeah, and so that relationship took some time. So becoming a young adult was kind of trying to find your place in the organization, what you should be doing, what you want to be doing. There's always nudges to become part of this group or join that group, and I had trouble saying no. So I joined and tried to find my place, thinking that would give me that relationship. But really where it comes is that something has to happen in your life that gets you there. And for me, it happened to be loss, where losing people very close to me, I knew that the only place I could find comfort and answers was with Swami. And then living on my own also was that same situation, is knowing that Swami was the only person that I could talk to and turn to, and he was always there for me. And that's when I started to develop that. It took time, but because the foundation was there, I knew exactly where to go.
Thank you, Niyanta. Samyant.
Sairam. So our family came to Swami because my parents were worried that I was becoming quite rebellious. I was 12. So they actually looked around to see where they could take me, and they found the Sai Center. So I attended SSE at that time, and actually my first feeling after I moved away from home was, Swami, why did you have to come into my life so early? Because you have set a bar for our behavior that's way too high, and if I just didn't know you, that would be so much easier. So I have to say that my relationship actually developed when Swami scolded me on one of our trips to India. He called us in for a few interviews where everybody would think, oh wow, look at how lucky they are, and then he would scold us. And every time I'd be like, no, 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 not today, not today. And the thing is, what he was scolding me about was probably 90% in my head, maybe 10% outside. And the point is that he had discovered the trend. We don't just wake up one day and say, I'm not going to believe in Swami, or I'm not going to follow Swami. We make 1,000 decisions over time that either take us towards Swami or away from Swami. And he was alerting me to that trend. And I think that day I thought, oh my God, I have disappointed him so much. And he said, you may not get marks, but don't get remarks. And I know he has said that publicly, but he said that to me. And after that, my entire goal was to never make anybody say, that person who is a Sai devotee behaved in such and such a way. So my goal became that I should protect his name because I loved him so much. And I think that is how my own relationship with Swami developed.
Thank you. Geeta Auntie?
Sai Ram, everyone. Good morning. Mine was very different from these two young ladies here. I opened my eyes, I guess I was born, and they took me to Puttaparthi to introduce me to Swami. So I completely grew up under the umbrella of his eyes. So as a child, I grew up just loving him because he used to come and stay with us, and I really thought he was like a mobile candy store. So if we kept quiet while he gave his talks to the family members, at the end of his talk, he would materialize whatever chocolate we wanted. So I think I spent the early childhood part till I was 3 or 4 thinking that if I'm just quiet, he's going to give me Cadbury's chocolate or whatever it was. So I really thought he was a candy store for a long time. And then I think when I was about 8, you've heard me before, to go very quickly, an old aunt who had stayed with us, who was an ardent devotee of Swami, she had come from Puttaparthi for an eye surgery, and she did not want to be treated by the doctors unless she had some vibhuti from Swami, which she had run out of. In those days, in the early 60s, late 50s, it was very difficult to go to Parthi, and I was 8 years old. My dad said he couldn't take her all the way back to Puttaparthi just for the vibhuti. Swami had sent her for the surgery, and the phone call came home, and I happened to pick up the call, and it was Swami calling from Bukkapatnam, which was away from Parthi, just to answer this elderly lady's call. And from the telephone, a gush of vibhuti came onto the newspaper that he asked me to put under the telephone. So the vibhuti came out, and I was the one who was on the phone. And I picked up the phone, and he said, "Did you get it?" So I said, "Yes, there's a lot of vibhuti here. We know that Bangalore telephone is not that efficient, but it had worked this time." And he said, "You give it to the old lady." And it was a wonderful, I was the heroine of the drama for a few weeks. Everybody in the family came, and I had to keep repeating the story over and over again, and I had the center stage of all the elders to whom I kept explaining what had happened. And once all of that died down, I suddenly started to think about it. I was 8 years old, I was not a baby anymore. And I thought, wow, if somebody loves him this much, and if somebody has this much faith on him, he's even going to come through the telephone. And that kind of changed my perception of him from this lovely, wonderful uncle who gave me candies at home to this wonderful person who responds to love and devotion. And that kind of changed it, but still I was a part of a family that spent every single holiday, every single festival in Parthi. And it was only in my teenage years, when I was about 13 or 14, that I developed an intense sort of a personal relationship with him when he asked me to become a Balavika's guru at the age of 14. And my only resource at that time were all of the discourses and stories that I had heard from him directly. There was no curriculum, there was no lesson plans or anything. So every time I had to do a class, I would go to Brindavan. Swami used to spend a lot of time in Brindavan because the college was being set up. And he would sit with me and help me plan my lessons for my SSC class. So I made a whole lot of lessons with his help. And at that point, I realized that he could be my mother, father, he could be this divine being, but he could be my friend who was always there to help me. And from there, my relationship developed to everything under the sky.
Thank you. It's beautiful to see how, even though we all would have, surrounded ourselves with devotees of Swami, be in the center, be part of a Sai family, it all boils down to developing our own connection, and that happens. When that happens, everything else clicks. So thank you, ladies, for that. So as I cycle through these questions, if you have any questions for the panelists that you would like to ask, feel free to reach out for an index card. It's being passed out, and you can send it in. I'll try to cover the questions we have not gotten to in the interest of time. So I already have a couple here. So that's just a note for you to remember. So here is a question that we all struggle with as mothers. Through the decades, Swami has always reminded women that they're the primary caregivers for their children, especially when they're young. He's said this in discourse after discourse after discourse about the role mothers play in raising children. So my question to you is, how did you raise your children, and what tips can you share with us? Things like good company or open communication with parents, or how to connect with a school-going child. And Niyanta, you can share your experience from the receiving end. Yeah. Oh, yes.
So growing up, I was very, very lucky. I grew up in a household with my grandparents and my parents. Were home from work at 3 o'clock when we would be home from school. So they were always very available to us for conversation, communication, on all different levels. It taught a love, respect, communication. We'd always be together, every meal together. So that was, I think, an important pivotal role in my upbringing. Do you want me to go into this? Okay, yeah. And so part of that was just having a platform to be able to talk to each other at an open level. And part of this isn't from me, but reflections upon it later. But something I see with a lot of my Group 4 students is that having that open communication with your kids in that kind of clear, no judgment zone with them can only help develop a better relationship understanding for Group 4 and younger kids growing up too in this society. There's a lot of challenges that we face, and we don't necessarily know how to talk about it. Sometimes we're surrounded by peers that might not have the same Sai upbringing, so you need somewhere where you can talk through that with. And we have young adult friends, but sometimes we don't. We're in smaller areas that don't. And the better that parents can be open about communicating that in a non-judgmental way, I think can only better the relationship with Swami in the future.
Did you feel like you had expectations to fulfill of your parents?
Yes, I think every young kid does. I still do, and it's still something you struggle with, is that expectation that you have not only from your parents, from the Sai Center, from your other family, from, everyone around you, is that expectations that, are you fulfilling it? Are you doing what everyone wants you to do? Are you being the best version you can be? And as young adults, I know I've heard this from a lot of young adults, is that everyone puts us up on a platform and says that, oh, you're such good role models, and you kind of want to remind them we're all human, we're all figuring out together, and we can only do that working together. It's, I think, kind of bringing it back to that, but trying to get away from that level of expectation and just understand that it's life, we're all going to slip and fall, but we have the foundation to be able to pick ourselves back up again.
Would you like to share?
Sure. So Swami once guided me, every day pray with your children and pray for your children. And I think the strongest prayer I had was that my children should develop a relationship of their own and that they should have Swami's experience for their own selves. And I'll share with you an episode that happened soon after I kind of started to have the prayer of, Swami, you have to start reaching out to the children for yourself, so that they can develop this. We had gone to the New Mexico retreat, and I think my children were about 9 and 7. And on our way back, my daughter said, and when I say said, it was many, many times, I want Wendy's. And so after about several times, my husband just kind of said, okay, close your eyes and say 21 ohms, and then we'll see. So she closed her eyes and very sincerely said 21 ohms. And we went over a hill, and there was a Wendy's. And this was the first time she had an experience where she had just asked for something and Swami had responded. And I think that was a very powerful moment in her life. And, Swami says a mother's prayer is very powerful. And she felt it was the answer to her prayer, but I felt it was the answer to my prayer, that my child should have her own connection with Swami. So that was one thing. The second thing is that who you are as a devotee is what the children see. If they see you giving lip service to devotion to Swami, and you're not internalizing as much of Swami's teachings as you can, it is evident. So I think the best thing you can do for your children is to become the best devotee you can be. Imbibe and what's the word for giving? Role model whatever you are able to of Swami's teachings. And then take them to SSE classes, and it was non-negotiable. In our house, it was non-negotiable on Sunday mornings. And again, I'm going to give my daughter as an example. All through, I think, her teen years, every week or every other week, she would say, do I have to go to SSE? I would say yes. And you can't blame her for trying, but it was always yes, you have to go. And what's interesting to me now is she has every intention of taking her kids to SSE. Because I think it's not until you look back on it that you really see the value of it. And I would agree with the open communication. And the way that happened in our family was that, except for I think a year and a half, I worked part-time. So in the years that they were growing up, I was a full-time parent and a part-time working person. In the years since they've grown, I've been a full-time physician and teacher. and a part-time parent. So that's how I've looked at it. But when I would bring them home from school, that 15-minute ride home is when all of the things that happened in the day would come out slowly. After that initial 2 sentences, how was your day? Good. And what did you learn? Nothing. After that, everything else was real stuff, and including the conversation between the kids in the back seat that I was just privy to because I happened to be the chauffeur. And I was able to kind of put a sentence here or a suggestion there, or, you might want to consider looking at it this way. Without saying you have to or you should, I was able to do that, especially as they got older and in their teenage years. And one last thing I'll say is that I think kids need this parent after school more during their teen years rather than less. So we often think that when you are old enough to feed yourself, dress yourself, and stay at home alone, then you don't need the parent home when you get home from school. And I just think, in my own experience, I think that's both as a child growing up and as a parent raising my children, I think that's not true. I think that's when you need them most, because that's when it's not the physical development, it's the emotional, mental, conscience development. Sathya.
So I have a follow-up question for you, Niyanta, and I have a follow-up question for you too. How do you balance that being there for your teenage child with giving them the space they need? Because they do tend to be moody. So if you could go first, then I'll follow through with you. Yes.
I think that if you accept moodiness, and the thing is, we have been given so much love from Swami that we have plenty left over to share, whether a person is treating you the best way or not. So I think the way I think of it is you're kind of like a levee. You're a levee when the waters are kind of bashing. And you're there to kind of stand steady. So I think the less you take it personally and the less you actually react to the statement that's made and you respond more to the underlying feeling, I think that's what helped me give that space. One of the things is sort of going off by yourself and thinking about it. And I've once was asked by a patient, at what age should you stop timeouts? And so I actually learned this from a colleague of mine. And she said, you don't stop timeouts. You actually model timeouts. So when you are upset, you say, I need a timeout. And then timeout stops being a punishment and starts being a space where people can calm themselves down and they can transition from an externally imposed timeout to, I need a timeout, and I'm going to go in my room and think and calm myself down and then come back and join the family space. So I think that's the other way, is that you actually model timeout as that space of moodiness.
Thank you. So this question is actually for all of you, because you've all been teens and you've all had to go through exams. So how did you get yourself to SSC class when you had exams to take care of, or you had schoolwork to do?
This is non-negotiable. You go to SSE, you time manage, you make your way around it, but SSE was there. I don't think we would ever skip it because of an exam or because we were studying, and I think the same thing went for Friday Bhajans. We would always go. You kind of work everything else around it, and I think that that's translated to my young adult life as well, is that, you make time for what's important, and going to bhajans for an hour refreshes you, and it gives you the energy to keep going and get more done, because it centers you. And same with SSE is, after SSE, you wake up early, you go to SSE, you're back. You have the whole day to do stuff. So it actually kind of gets your engine running quicker. So, but it's about time management, definitely.
I'm just going to go back on that question that you had asked before, because I just had one little thing to share. For me, it was a little bit different because I grew up in India in very close proximity to Swami. So growing up, there was talk about standards that you're held to. I was held to the highest standards, not only by my parents, but there was Swami behind me all the time. And I remember sometimes when I was in my teenage years saying, go be omnipresent somewhere else. Don't be in my space, because he would know exactly what I was doing at all times. My parents didn't have that wonderful quality, but here was this person who came and stayed with us, and I remember very clearly that I was into reading all sorts of novels when I was in my high school years, and Swami would for some reason want to have dinner in my room on my desk. So every time my mother served dinner or lunch, it would be in my room, and I was like, can he not just eat at the dining table like everybody else? But there was a reason for this. He would come into the room, and every time Swami came, all my novels, they were the deep shelves, bookshelves, the novels would be in the back, and in front of those books, which I was reading, would be the Sathya Sai Speaks, which looked brand new. Anybody would know I hadn't turned those pages, but they were brand. And he would come into my room to eat, and he would be waiting for my mother to bring rice or whatever it was. And he would take out 4 books and look behind, and he said, oh, these are the books you're reading now. Looking at the novel. So, that's exactly why I didn't want his omnipresence that much. So my standards were like too high, and like any teenager growing up in any country, I resented that, honestly. But I loved him so much that, because of the so much love that he pours, that when you say, do you want a carrot or an ice cream, you're going to choose the ice cream, as healthy as the carrot might be, or whatever the pure thing going on. So I love them so much. So when I raised my children here in the US, they didn't have that kind of physical proximity except when we went to India. And I too, like Soumya, wanted them to have Swami for themselves, not the Swami that I told them all the time about. Swami did this for me, Swami did that for me, and they're like, oh, okay, whatever, But they grew up loving him, they saw him. But the one thing that happened to them, and if we have tremendous faith in him as a mother, that we want our children to tread the right path, he will respond. It doesn't matter how. Soumya talked about the Wendy incident. For me, it was a little different because of the physical presence. We had Akhanda Bhajan in our center. My children were about 7 years old. We went to Bangalore and went to Puttaparthi, and Swami called us in for an interview, and the children were sitting, and they sang all night. We were a small center at that time, so these 2 kids, 7 years old, my twin sons, sang all night long because there were not that many singers. And during one of the bhajans, I believe, I didn't even remember that, my son had got up to go and drink orange juice when somebody was singing. And in another bhajan, they had missed a beat while singing. And when we were in the interview room, Swami said, good boys attended Akhanda Bhajan, he said. And they said, yes, Swami, we sang. He said, yes, you sang, but you got up for orange juice when somebody was singing. And then he said, for Bola Bandari Baba, you missed the beat in the second speed. So that was it for them, because they knew that Swami was with them all the time. And I did tell them that we are different, but we are unique. So if you stick with Sai path, your friends may not be there with you, but you are a unique individual who has seen God. How many people get that?
So for that same previous question, I was thinking about this with my teenage years, and they probably weren't the best. But being the position I am as a young adult, and I interact with a lot of Group 4 and younger young adults, and I've been kind of lucky, and one of my younger SSE kids came up to me and was like, Didi, sometimes I just get so angry. Like, what do I do? Like, when I don't want to talk to my parents, and I'm going through all of this stuff. And, my suggestion to her was very much similar to what Somi Auntie just said, was go take a time out. Say, Mom, I need 10 minutes. Just let me cool down, and then, I'll be ready to talk. But just give me 10 minutes. And not so much the story and what it was, but how important it is for young adults to be there for Group 3 and 4 going through that. I think sometimes it's hard for parents and kids to understand it. I wish I had someone tell me that when I was going through that age. And for me, as a young adult, I want to make sure that young adults take that kind of role, obviously with parents' respect in mind, if you're close and comfortable with the kids to be able to say that. But it sometimes helps to have that middle ground for someone who's been through that to kind of go to and say, how do you deal with this in a proper way, in a spiritual way, in a Saya way, without getting angry and exhibiting behavior that's not good?
Thank you, Nianta. As I was listening to you and I was looking at the audience, I was thinking there would be a lot of us that have not known Swami or been brought up in his fold. But as I was hearing you, I realized that once you get to know him, at whatever stage in your life, the standard is higher. And as women, we tend to feel guilty for a lot of things that we do and we don't do, especially as mothers. So how do you address someone that has the concern of, I don't follow everything that Swami says, how can I tell my children to? Anybody can go. Gitanti?
No, I think we have to, the communication part that Soumya was mentioning with our children is most important. And as she said, I too did a part-time job while they were young, and the time to be there for them is very important when they come home and they want to talk to you. So the communication part is the most important thing. But holding them to high standards, I felt, were equally important, because we want to hold them to high standards. We want them to say that this is where we have to reach. This is our goal. Swami holds us to very high standards. He says, you're born as a human being, you live in this world, but your ultimate goal is to realize yourself. He holds us to very high standards. So, we have to do that, but when we are going through that whole process, did you say balance? What?
Yes. How do you not feel guilty about telling your children?
No, we don't have to feel guilty about telling our children, because more than anybody in the world, your children know your faults. They'll be waiting to say, oh, how come you told me to talk so little in my case, and you're constantly on the phone with somebody? And you tell me to be quiet. So, the children know your fault, so trying to hide it is useless. So it's better to tell them that I am also on this journey along with you. It's just that I have been on it a longer time because of my faults, and I've learned a few things along this journey that I'm trying to share with you so that you don't make the same mistakes that I made. Maybe you'll make new mistakes, but at least you have the advantage of not making the mistakes I made. So in fact, that was one of the things that Swami had told me. I'll get angry with you, but when I correct you, don't make the same mistake. Make a new mistake, I'll correct you again. But don't make the same mistake. So I kind of told them that, and I think we have to tell them that we are also full of faults. We are all on the same journey, but I've just been on it a little bit longer than you. And if you can find some good things that I have seen, I'm telling you, I'm sharing it with you, try to use that to your advantage.
Soumya?
So I agree. I think we have to maintain as high standards as we can. And my answer whenever it was like, oh, well, why do we have to do that? Or, it's my job. That was my standard line. This is my job. And I have to answer to Swami, and I have to do the job to the best of my ability. So that was my answer for having the high standard. There was one other thing. Oh, and I would say the same thing, is I didn't expect them not to make a mistake. I expected them at every moment to try their best to maintain as high a standard as they could. And I had that same expectation for myself. And the thing is, if you always commit yourself to doing your best at that moment, your best changes. But you never have to look back and say, I didn't do my best. Because at that time, it was your best. And so I think it's easier to kind of forgive yourself for mistakes you've made in the past because you didn't know better, or because you didn't have the ability, the emotional strength, or whatever it was. If you always commit to doing your best, I think that reduces Swami's teaching into one single thing. So that was what I expected.
Thank you. So, a very common topic that comes up in questions that people have to do with, Swami always talks about gender separation. And people have questions about dating. Should I date? Should I not? This is not India. I live here. So how do you apply Swami's dictum about dating and gender separation to life and culture here? Because I've noticed people either ignore it and say it doesn't work, or they have their own idea about it and get all confused. So what has been your approach to this? Have you been guided by Swami? Would you like to share?
So, I read the question, I was like, oh yeah, I guess that's probably an issue, but when you grow up in the Sai fold, you kind of forget about it. You're used to sitting separately at Bhajan, having certain things you do in center time and certain things you don't, and certain people you talk to and certain people you shouldn't associate too much, but just the right amount. I was lucky because our center was never too conservative or too, no one would ever be like, oh, don't be talking to Sai brothers right now. We didn't have too many restrictions, but we also all knew what was right, what was modest, what was appropriate, and I think that that's why that there wasn't. So I was fortunate. I also grew up going to girls' school, so that gave me another layer of understanding of why maybe some of that separateness is there. But I guess when you look at it, I think when it comes to parents and kids and this topic, because I think that's an important place where it comes through, especially for kids who grew up in kind of more traditional households. Being able to have that open, non-judgmental communication with your parents about what's going on and being able to talk about it is the best thing you can do, I think, for your kid as a young adult, for them to be able to bring it to you. If it is happening maybe within the center or dating, and some things happen. This happens. We all have seen it in our centers. But the more openly you can communicate about it with your family, I think that's the starting point for this. I know there's no right or wrongs. We're in this society and we're all trying to figure it out. But I guess from what I've seen is that open communication is the best platform for any of this.
Thank you.
So in this, I have evolved. When I was a teenager, I used to be outraged that Swami would say, don't talk to 50% of the population. And as if the remaining 50% was not enough to talk to. So I really fought against that rule, mentally. I mean, one of the things that perhaps just my style is to behave externally as I'm expected to while I figure it out in my head. And actually, I have found that has been even though there's a discordance in yourself for a while, I've trusted Swami to show me the why later. And so I didn't really behave outrageously, even though mentally I was still arguing with Swami. Now, though, I really understand that Swami's separation is not about morality. It's about development. And I actually tell this, not in the context of Swami, to my patients who are teenagers. And I say, this is a time of intense development of every single one of your talents. And what happens is, if you get into a relationship really early, you short-circuit the development of certain talents because of what that person might think about it. And I give the example of chess, mainly because most of the kids are not encouraged to do chess. Like in relationships, the boy may not be encouraging the girl to do chess. I choose that as an example. And I say, yeah, chess, the game. So I say, suppose you were really good in chess, and your boyfriend didn't appreciate that. You would automatically not develop that talent. And the interesting thing is the look that comes in their eyes at even as young as age 12 and 13 is, oh my God, I've already done that. And so I really think that this is not just for Sai devotees, but I really think the broader community, the longer that people stay focused on their own development as individuals, both men and women, as individuals, they have far more of a whole person to bring to a relationship when it's time for the relationship. So, and there have been studies that have shown that girls do better in all-girl classes. They don't, because otherwise what they do is they dump themselves down in order to be acceptable to the class. And that is a well-known, that's actually been studied. So I think that Swami put it in the context of this is what you should do, and he didn't explain it, and I didn't understand it at that time, but this is how I have understood it since, and this is how I would explain it to anyone going through that stage now.
It's precious. Thank
Sai
you.
Ram. I know. That's why I'm kind of laughing, because I'm sitting here thinking, did I live on Mars when I was a teenager or something? Because my experience was so completely different from these two young ladies here. Because Swami got me married to my husband, I only came to know his name after Swami had fixed the marriage, the date and everything. When we left the interview room and we came out, I asked my mother, what is the guy's name, you know? So I'm coming from that background. But, so that was my thing. Swami said, this is the person, marry him, and I married him. I didn't even know his name when Swami settled. But I came to this country and I raised my children here, which is the important topic that we are talking about now. And, we had high standards like we talked before, but because of all these things that I saw and heard from my peers who were also raising children, I was convinced, even before my children were 7.5 years old, that they were going to bring 20 girls home. And they would want to marry all of them. I had this terrified, petrified feeling in my heart. So every time I went to Puttaparthi, I would remind Swami, I'm living in America. I'm living in And he says, yes, I know you. I sent you there. I didn't want to say, what about my children? And then actually, Swami gave a beautiful explanation, which he never thought of giving me when I was a teenager. I was quite upset about that. But he did to my children who grew up, in this culture and in this country. And it is exactly what Soumya put it beautifully. He said that when you are a student, when you can realize your full potential of what you can become as an adult, if you're going to invest those emotions on things like relationships and everything, You do not have the maturity to handle it if it doesn't work out. You're going to be a basket case. And Swami did one little drama in the room, and he said, you'll be saying, Sai Ram, this girl doesn't like me, Sai Ram, this girl. And I cannot make the girl like a fool like you. Because you don't earn your own money. You don't have a car. You cannot even drive yet properly without getting parking tickets and running red lights. How can I make a poor girl like a fool like you? So your job is to develop and realize your full potential. Become a man. Learn to become a responsible citizen of the world. A good human being who can take on the responsibility of another human being. That's what a relationship and a marriage is. When you're ready for that, Swami will show you the right person. So that was his.
You know, Swami is, I was listening to you and I was thinking, Swami is so loving and kind when it comes to women and girls. I can speak for it firsthand. Like, you read Sathya Sai Speaks and you think, oh my, like you're so out of touch, what you say goes over my head. But in moments like this is where he shows his absolute love, and he feels our pain as women. He does, and gives tips accordingly. So to have the faith, that things will happen. It's not like he doesn't want you to. So can you talk to that dating multiple people? We talked about it over lunch. Right? Yeah, see?
Yes. Swami actually, even that, he said to them, he said, you know, when you're growing up and through your life, you have to keep a single chair in your heart. I don't sit on a double sofa. I sit on a single sofa. So while you're growing up and you're developing your faith and you want to lead a spiritual life with Swami as your core, then that has to be your occupation first. Mm-hmm. And if you develop that tremendous love and faith for Swami, he will show the right person for you at the right time. There is a time involved. Mm-hmm. And he knows, and if we have that faith, when that time comes. And as far as he said, you know, he did address this actually. And I just want to make the point that because my children grew up here, though they knew Telugu and Kannada, they could understand very well. This particular advice that he gave about dating and marriage, he spoke to them completely in English. And at the end of the interview, he said, I spoke to you in English so that I don't want you to come back and say, I didn't understand what Swami said. So he is a master psychologist. You know, so as far as multiple, he said it is not good because you are going to get more and more confused. You like some qualities in this girl, you like something else in that girl, you like something. There is never going to be a girl who will meet your dream 100%. So he said the quality that you have to develop is that of adjustment and compromise. And for that, one person that Swami sends you will be more than enough. You'll need your whole life to learn about one person. How will you learn about 20 people? And in my case, being twins, it would have been 40.
I wanted to add something because after we spoke yesterday on this topic, the only thing I could think of was, you know, growing up, it's always no dating, no explanation, nothing else. And I don't know how many young adults have experienced that too. But hearing stories like this and understanding the reasoning behind it helps so much. So the better parents, moms, you know, you have a better emotional connection to be able to explain that to your kids is so important. I think that just saying no, if you tell someone no, they're going to want to do it anyway. But having a conversation like this is very, very important.
Thank you, Yanta.
And the only thing I would say is have the faith that Swami sends the person. Whether they send it to your parents or they send it to you, Swami is in charge of all of this. So I think, again, having that foundation of faith, that your life is directed by him, is really important, both for the parents and for the children.
Thank you. I have two questions here. One is, and by the way, I've been integrating your questions as we've gone along. Here's one where they say that people think that Swami does not provide enough opportunities for women, and they cite the example of colleges where the courses are lesser. So why are there less choices for women than for men, and why does he not give enough chances for women? Do you have any thoughts on that? Generally, in his institutions, in life, like you always see the boys and the men around him and not women.
I think it is not lesser or more, it is different. He is developing his women in a different way. And I kind of think of it as Aparna was talking about the preciousness of what's in a bank. The preciousness is not out visible. I think those things are kept close. And I feel like that's how Swami develops his women. It's just a different kind of development. And I think, well, I'm just going to stop there. I just think it's different.
It's different. It's not less.
No, it's not less.
Thank you.
Actually, I'll tell you what Swami said. Because this was a question that I grew up with. I grew up in India. Till the age of 13, I went everywhere with Swami in the car. Wherever he went, he would take me. And suddenly, 13, it stopped. Only my brother drove the car for Swami. He would even get the choice of which car to drive for Swami. And I would have this long face all the time. But I never had the courage to ask him anything when I was young. But it was much later when I was a mother and I had 2 sons. And we were in there, and my sons, I used to tell them how that physical interaction of going everywhere with Swami stopped for me. My sons felt, oh, good thing we are boys then, and all that. So when we were in the interview room, I told Swami, finally, after so many years, I think it was in the back of my brain, I said, Swami, you stopped me from going with you everywhere after the age of 13. Now at least Arun and Varun, my sons, they can enjoy your physical presence for a long time because all the college boys are always behind you here. And Swami very sweetly said, the boys need me more, Bangaro. The boys need me more. Their brains are going like monkeys from one branch to the other. One brother. Girls are dignified and mature. So that answer he kind of finished with me. But yes. And mature. But then he also added that women are judged more, unfortunately, in every society by the character, by their character. So you must be careful not to get remarks. That is why even Swami is careful. And he told me actually when you go and give your talks, when people want to take your photo, when some office bearers are all men, call their wives and together take a photo. He said, call their wives. Because they will say, Geeta Ram has 5 husbands. So, he said, remarks will affect your life. People will talk behind you. So, women are always held to the highest level of purity. So, to reach that purity, you have to follow some worldly norms.
Thank you. Has your faith, you have so much faith in Swami, has it been challenged at any point of time in your life? Challenged.
Yes, so my faith was challenged when our family experienced something that sort of separated our family briefly. And what helped me through that is that my husband had absolutely rock solid faith. And I'm sure that Swami got me through that, got me married to him in order for our family to weather that unshakable faith. Weather that shaking time. And what I've noticed is that faith itself is a gift from Swami. And I think our first prayer should be, Swami, please make sure I always have faith in you. Because that is not to be taken for granted at all. So.
No, I think my answer to that is no. But one very beautiful sentence that Swami told my sons when they were entering college was, have faith in Swami and have confidence in your faith.
So both of you are a grandmother and you both are mothers-in-law. What teaching of Swami do you find relevant today as you take on this new role in your life? How do you practice it?
I don't think I practice it any differently than how I treat my adult children. I mean, it's, again, back to basic principles. Be the best that you can at every moment. And fortunately for me, Swami has made it really easy. I mean, they're lovely people, so so I don't think there's any difference in being an in-law than being a mother, except that you don't feel responsible for the development of the character. And with your own adult children, you can make statements of, you might consider it this way, or I might do it this way. But even for your own adult children, you're no longer responsible for their behavior and their connection with Swami. That is theirs. And I think that's how I feel towards my son-in-law. Yeah.
For me, I was just absolutely excited to have two girls in the family, having had sons for whom you have to shop for boring clothes, So I was very excited to have two girls in the family. And like Soumya said, for me too, but I came from a little bit of a different background due to the way I was raised and the way I interacted with my own in-laws. Maybe to some extent, there is always a sense of expectation from the girls, and I would constantly remember and remind myself that they are adults now and they have to lead their independent lives. And as she said, that I might make a suggestion, and I had to learn to say it once and then sort of take a back step and say they will make their decisions as grown-ups. But it was a little bit different for me when I became a grandmother. I have 4 grandchildren, and I raise my children. My whole educational background is in early childhood, and I always felt I knew a lot about children, and you very soon come to know you don't. So I had to learn to actually put a little bit of distance between me constantly trying to tell my sons as well as my daughters-in-law what they should be doing with their children. Their children are only 2 and 5, they're still very young. But I found myself saying, oh, why don't you feed them this way? Or maybe they'll eat better if you give them that. It was all just very mundane stuff. And my husband, who's very anchored, would say, well, it's their children, you realize that, right? They're just your grandchildren. And he would remind me of that. And I had to kind of learn that a little bit, and I think I'm still in the process, to learn to respect the motherhood of my daughters-in-law. They're also mothers. They are also going through it. And I had to learn to respect that. They're mothers. Why am I thinking I'm so great just because I'm their grandmother? They are also mothers. They have the best interest of their children. So I am still learning, and I keep telling my daughters-in-law that if I overstep, let me know and I'll back off. But I'm still learning, because that's something, it's a grandchild and you think you want to do this, that, and the other, and they'll say, Mommy, no chips before dinner, please. And the grandchildren, chips before. So I'm learning to respect their motherhood.
And it's such a beautiful journey, right? As women, you just grow and you keep growing and you evolve, and it never ends. So I'm assuming, as you were talking, you are a mother-in-law. Your sons have mothers-in-law. Your daughter has mothers-in-law. So just like every stage in life, as a young adult too, how do you deal with negative / just peer pressure?
That's a good one. Yeah. I think an important part of that is that negative peer pressure is always going to be around you. Negativity, things coming at you. The best thing you can do for yourself early in life is learn to listen to your inner voice. Learn to figure out a way to hear it, that Swami within you, and that offers you the guidance in whatever you do. And I don't know how you develop that. It could be through bhajans, it could be through meditation, it could be through yoga. Find what it is that allows you to start listening for it and hear it more and more. And that's the only thing that's going to guide you through and give you the answers you need in the situations. Things sometimes aren't so black and white, and that inner voice is the only thing that can help you through it.
So I was very susceptible to peer pressure. And so Swami had to make the drastic move. And I'm sure there were multiple other reasons, but Swami made the drastic move of actually asking me to leave medical school about 6 months before I graduated. And in retrospect, one of the things was that he wanted me to, it wasn't that they were bad, it was just that I was drifting, as I had said earlier, and when you remove yourself from the situation, you can look at it with clarity, but the other thing was you learn to walk alone. And it is the courage to walk alone that you develop by walking alone. So I think if you think of it as, oh, I can't do this, and you just think of it as their negative, you react to it differently. But when you think, this is a situation where Swami wants me to develop some courage, wants me to develop a spine, then you think of it differently and you think of it as your workout. And I think that in retrospect, that learning, that period of time which was so hard, and I walked alone and our families our extended family thought my parents were crazy for supporting me in doing this. But, and then Swami said, go back and finish. Like that was the easiest thing to do. But I think he taught me in that experience, and I don't recommend it for any of you. Don't let Swami get to the point where he has to do something drastic. But I think take every opportunity to develop that courage of walking alone. And the times when you do it, when it's small, it actually develops your strength, and he won't have to give you big ones to develop the strength.
Thank you. I'll just answer it in two parts if I have time. One is very similar to what she's saying. When my sons, I'll say it from their point of view, when my sons were about to enter college, Swami gave some really beautiful advice to them, and I thought it may be useful to share it because I'm seeing so many youngsters here. And this was the question that my sons asked Swami. Swami, we are going to go to college. We are different. And mom keeps saying we are unique, but we are different. She doesn't understand that. So how are we going to deal with the kind of pressure that we are going to face in college? And Swami very sweetly sort of patted them both on their cheeks, and he said, this is for all my Sai children, he said. It was not only for my sons. He said in Telugu, Saiku eppudu yes, yes, yes. For Swami, it's always yes, yes, yes. Actually meaning the letter S, 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 But he had a pun on those words. He said, when you are a student, it is an S. When you're a student, study. That's an S. When you're very tired of studying, go and play sports. That's an S. When you're tired of sports, go and sing. That's an S. Sing meaning anything else that gives you food for the soul, he said. So not if you can't sing, don't sing and make the whole dorm like a complain on you. But, some activity that is food for your soul. So when you do that, you're never alone. Swami is always with you saying yes, yes, yes to the S's in your life. So I'll be there with you. And much later, a couple of times when we went later, he would tell them when they used to go and play basketball by themselves on a Saturday evening when there was nobody in the dorm, everybody had gone clubbing, he would tell them how many scores they had scored in the basketball court. So that was one experience. But the other peer pressure you started out asking, as a mother-in-law, what is the pressure? Believe me, Bollywood has made it very difficult. Because you have to live down this image of this mother-in-law who's going to do something really mean and nasty to you. So I found myself telling my daughters-in-law almost, don't be scared of me, I'm not going to do anything to you. Because I just loved them to death and they were wonderful, they're wonderful girls. But it is, we get kind of so many different inputs from the society around you. We just have to remember to be ourselves. I know there is nothing about me that they should be scared of. If I know that, and if I love them, then my relationship with my daughters-in-law should be really beautiful.
Thank you. I have another question about balancing home life, work, and Sai Center. We all love Swami, and we show up at the center every week, and we think we need to take on a lot of responsibilities. So how do you balance your work life, home life, and your Sai Center life? Would you like to go?
It's tricky. Coming from a city with a very small Sai Center, you end up wearing a lot of hats and play a lot of roles, and there's no real option for not showing up. And so that's a priority. Work is demanding, and there's weeks where you're working 50, 60 hours a week and wondering, okay, how am I going to have time for all of my side commitments? And then there's family situations and weddings and things going on, and you're finding yourself running all over the place. Making that time to have not just the Sai Center connection with Swami, but your one-on-one connection with Swami in between all of that. Meditate, pray, make time every day for that moment, and somehow things speed up. Like there's magically more time in the day, and I don't know how it works. It's Swami's Leela. He gives you the time where you need it. Sometimes something might fall away, and when I find those moments, I say, thank you, Swami, for clearing that off my schedule. He's watching out for you. He never gives you more than you can handle, but be ready for him when he needs you to do something too.
I think I've felt that I've needs a center like I need lunch. It nourishes me and it actually enables me to do more in my week. As far as responsibilities go, if Swami has given you experiences and skills and faith, then I think I have a responsibility to use them in the way that he wants. So if he doesn't give me the time, then I wouldn't do it. But he always clears. He's my admin assistant, for those of you who heard that. He basically fixes my calendar, and he gives me space to do all of the things that he feels that I need to do. But I have to say that when I get something cleared, I tell my colleagues, it's like finding $20 in my pocket that I didn't know I had. It's like an extra 30 minutes. Saira.
So I think Swami clearly has said that we have to fix our priorities. If we are working, Swami says work is worship, duty is God. You have to do your work and whatever that duty is fully to the best of your abilities. Your family will take on the next responsibility. You have to be there for your family. You know, he says charity begins at home. And I remember once he really scolded a couple of Sevadal people in Brindavan, older ladies who had come to wash the dishes in the super specialty hospital. He said, your husband is unwell. You have left all your dishes in the sink for him to wash, and you're here coming and washing my dishes in the hospital? That should not be your priority. So we have to pick and choose our priorities. So first we have to do the ones that are most important for our well-being, your family and thing. And Swami's work will automatically come to you when the time is right. If that particular time is not right, it will not come to you. When the time is right, you choose your work and do it accordingly.
Thank you. You know, just listening to you all, it's so clear, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, that no matter where we come from and how we grew up, what cultural circumstances brought us to where we are today, the fact that we know Swami, we know his teachings, puts us in a place where we have something to aspire for. And we can reach that aspiration only with faith. And no matter what our problems are, no matter where we come from, these problems seem to be so common. And I was looking at you as they were talking, everybody would have been able to relate to something or the other. So problems take different forms, but they remain the same. They take different cultural contexts, but they remain the same. Even though Geeta auntie grew up right under Swami's nose, she had the exact same problems as you and I. She didn't want him to be watching her. She's like, go find somebody else. And we find the same thing happening today with us. Or, you know, or Samya saying, why did I get to know you now? Like, why couldn't I have known you later? Because life would have been a little easier. Like, I wouldn't have had to achieve, you know, reach the bar that you set for us. And this is something, is the process of evolution. We grow, but the constant person that's always going to be with us, whether we like it or not, is going to be Swami. There's no change in that. He is watching, he's listening, and he's by us. He says, don't walk in front of me, I'm not going to follow you. He says, don't walk behind me, I'm not going to turn and look to see if you're there. He says, walk beside me. So we take Swami with us in whatever roles we play, in whatever days we may have. We'll get over our, what he calls bumps and jumps, and we'll be able to wear all those hats. Now that you put all those hats on, you take all those hats off. And we all look alike. We're human beings connecting to the divine. That's all it is. So with that said, I just want to end with Swami's words and a letter he wrote to all of us. On the screen, you should be able to see his original letter and handwriting. Dear children, life is so complicated. I can see that all of you are going through various stages. The awakenings are there. Remember something. Enjoy every single second, yet know your priorities. You can do everything in life. With good time management and love, you can achieve great feats. Make the most of your time. Do the things you want, but also share the worlds of your friends, brothers, and sisters. There is no such thing as my or your world. Know how each of you are and try to be one with each other. I am your guru, father, and protector. I love you and will guide you. Remember that life is like a highway. There are all kinds of signs and indications that show you the ways. Many roads can lead to the same destination, but when the roads cross, this is where the minds and the worlds meet. Life is like the slopes of a mountain. You always climb up, but sometimes you may fall. But always remember that you have got the power to stand up on your feet again. God's guidance towards your destination. Love and protection, Sai. Jai Sai Ram.
How real was it? And I think you should all give yourself a round of applause for asking those real questions to make these moments happen. So thank you. Quick logistical announcements. There are some books available all the way at the back. Feel free to take them. And the lost and found section is also at the back near the water cooler. So if you've lost something, please do check back in that corner. And we will now take a 15-minute break. We'll see you all back at 11:35.